Hi everyone, it's Koinzell here. So I wanted to do a Ayaka complete guide video, and I know that I'm really late on this video. Many YouTubers have already done their Ayaka guide or first impression video, but I wanted to wait until I had at least a level 80 Ayaka along with a level 90 weapon or level 80 weapon, whichever comes first, or rather whichever comes later, to make a fair comparison against the rest of the DPS that I have, since all of them are like level 90 using level 90 weapons. It wouldn't be a fair comparison if I compare a level 70 character using a level 70 weapon versus a 90 character. So that's the reason why my guide video is a bit late. But nevertheless, I also took my time to properly play test with her. So that's why I can do a quality guide for you guys. At least I think it's a quality guide. So first off, let's talk about her kit. So I think most people will have already known what her kit is like. It's very straightforward. You have her attacks, and her charge attack is the one that is really good. Elemental skill, very straightforward. What I don't like about the elemental skill is that it's pretty much melee range. The range is very small. It's basically an AoE range around your character with the length being that of your basic melee attack. So basically, cast it when you are in melee range. Her alternate spring, that is the one that's interesting, since she can infuse her blade with cryo. Her normal attacks become and charge attacks become infused with cryo for 5 seconds after coming out of her alternate sprint. And her alternate sprint will also apply cryo to enemies when she ends her alternate sprint. So very similar to Mona. And Mona is also improved. Her animation is improved to be the same as Ganyu's, so it's much faster. And you can actually cancel your alternate spring with a attack to make it faster. Okay, so an example would be, if you don't cancel, you have to wait for her to turn and land in style, but you can cancel it like this. Okay, so that's a bit of tech in terms of cancellation. And since we are talking about cancellation, let's talk about her charge attack as well. You can cancel with a dash. So you have to be a bit patient, wait for the slashes to come out before you sprint. So you saw me doing, there was a premature case there, but it's fine. So the two cancellation is related to using spring to cancel a charge attack animation, and using normal attack to cancel her sprint animation. Okay, so these are the two animation cancellation that she can do. Now let's continue talking about her kit itself. The most important thing which is her burst. Her burst does a lot of damage. Her burst is in fact the main source of her damage, and you just look at the bloom damage figure, 270% is even more than the initial cutting damage, and her bloom damage is the one that ticks consistently. If I didn't remember wrongly, it ticks 21 times, so we are talking about 21 times 270% of damage here, which is like 5,000 plus, 5,500 plus damage. And it's quite restricted to the area in front of her. The bloom moves very slowly, so there are ways to make use of that. This is her passive, the first passive talent, which is basically after using her elemental skill, her normal and charge attacks deal 30% increased damage for 6 seconds. So this is pretty straightforward. And when you're gonna use the charge attack, use her elemental skill first. But honestly speaking, most of the time you should be using her burst. You only use a charge attack when you don't have enough energy for your burst, or if you're trying to conserve your burst for some other stuff. So for example, on Spiral Abyss, if the mob is almost dead, you want to conserve your energy. That's one example. Second passive, so when the cryo application at the end of her alternate sprint hits an opponent, you restore 10 stamina and you gain 18% cryo damage bonus. That's why, if you saw me doing the cancellation earlier, that is why we say use the alternate sprint to cancel the charge attack, so that you get the 10 stamina back and also an 18% cryo damage bonus for 10 seconds. So 10 seconds is very nice. 10 seconds is even longer than her infusion period, because the infusion period is only 5 seconds. Okay, this is very straightforward. I'm not going to talk about this. Next is Constellation. So you see me only having a C0. I did not even pull for anything more than C0 at the moment. I'm going to get her to level 19 before I decide whether or not I'm going to pull for C4. yeah, as a semi-wheel, right? All I'm gonna pull for is up to C4. If I'm gonna pull for her. But she actually does a very, very good job at C0. I'm able to thread through Spiral Abyss with C0. But for the sake of understanding her constellations, let's talk about her C1 to 4, in fact C1 to 6. So C1 is really, it's not great. Basically, it has 50% chance of decreasing the CD of her elemental skill 0.3 by 0.3 seconds, and it occurs every 0.1 second when you're doing attack with your normal charge attacks. So basically what this does is that it helps you be able to spend your elemental skill earlier and thus get more energy, get your burst up faster. But it's not going to be how should I put it? Having about 140% EI is still more important, and I'll talk about that later. C2 is nice. C2 basically makes her burst have a 2 small little flicks at the left and right of the main burst, dealing 20% each. So basically increases the AoE of her burst, but not the corresponding damage. It's only 20% of the original. C3 is very nice because it increases the burst level, not the element skill level. So if you don't already know how the level of talents work, right? Every level on average is about 6 to 7%. So if you're talking about 3 levels, it's actually a 20% increase in her burst damage. And her being a character where most of the damage comes from her burst, I'll say that C3 is actually pretty good. Her C3 is actually pretty good. C4 is crazy. C4 reduces opponent's defense by 30% when they are hit by the elemental burst. This is really nice, because the defense decrease deduction here, the rest of your party members will stand to gain from it. That's number one. Number two, the damage formula or the defense formula in Genshin works as such. You have resistance and you have defense. Defense is something that is always there based on the level of the enemies. It's always there. So when you reduce the defense of an opponent, the effect is huge, especially against higher level enemies, which means she does a very good job with C4 in Spiral Abyss, because Spiral Abyss is where you meet the really high level enemies, right? Like level 100. So C4 is actually really, really good. And this is not physical defense, by the way. This is defense which applies to every single type of damage. Defense is a separate attribute from resistance. Okay, so I can tell you defense deduction is a lot better than resistance deduction. And 30% is a very, very sizable figure, because if you look at characters like, say, Klee has C2. Let me show Klee's C2. Klee's C2 is a 23% deduction. And I think Lisa, if I'm not wrong, the talent also has the 15% reduction. Yeah, the static electricity field. So 15% defense is quite a normal case. In Razor also does a defense reduction, but only based on only physical only it's defense, sorry, not physical, it's purely defense. So defense decreased by 15% using Razor as well. And Ayaka's is 30%. So it's very, very nice. Okay. So next, C5 is just trash, honestly speaking, because her elemental skill, although this damage scaling is nice, her elemental skill is very, very boring. It's just there to get energy particles, and the AoE is really small. That's why I dislike about that skill. But I think this is why Ayaka, in my opinion, is actually a very balanced character, because her burst is so strong, so that's why her elemental skill is kind of lacking in that aspect. C6 is the one that's a bit, how should I put it? They don't want you to go all out on her burst. Basically, the downtime between her bursts is where they give you a opportunity to make her charge attack deal 3 times the damage. I mean, it's nice, but it's not fantastic per se. So if you're going for Ayaka, honestly, C0 is good enough. If not, C2, C3, C4 are all nice places nice constellations to get. Especially since we will be focusing on her burst damage. Alright, so that is it for constellations. I've covered talents, I've covered constellations, now we talk about artifacts. Artifacts wise, personally my recommendation would be 4-piece Blizzard Straya. The reason why is that her burst, although it hits 21 times, there is an ICD involved, so it's actually not going to do reverse melt for every single tick. That's why if you do a reverse melt comp on her, you don't get to do reverse melt every single tick. You get maybe out of the 21 ticks, I think about 7 ticks will have 7 hits of the burst will have reverse melt, the rest will not. But if you do a freeze comp using 4-piece Blizzard Straya, you gain the very hefty 40% crit rate bonus, which is very nice, and allows you to go all out for crit damage and attack percent, thereby making it easier to farm for her and get her damage higher. And to me, this is actually very F2P friendly Blizzard Straya. But obviously provided that you get the good artifacts. Every single character needs good artifacts, right? So that goes without saying. So for Blizzard Straya, for the freeze comp itself, you can keep the opponent constantly frozen. And if you know about how Morgana comp works, she can be a replacement for Ganyu there. Ganyu will still do better in a Morgana comp, and I'll talk about it at the end of this video, but Ayaka will be able to do very nicely in Morgana comp as well. And I will have a DPS showcase later showing how she works in Morgana comp. Although, since the Ganyu part is gone, we can't call it Morgana anymore, right? More Ayana? I don't know. Okay, anyway, so that is for freeze comp. If you don't want to go for freeze comp, because freeze comp obviously is very conditioned, you need to make sure that you need to have those characters for the freeze comp. If you're not going for freeze comp, two other options would be to go 2-piece Blizzard Straya or 2-piece Nobliss with 2-piece Blizzard Straya with 2-piece Nobliss, or 2-piece Blizzard Straya with 2-piece Gladiators. Okay, so the reason why I say this is like I said, her damage, most of it is coming from the burst. So in my opinion, 2-piece burst, 2-piece Nobliss with 2-piece Blizzard Straya would be better than 2-piece Blizzard Straya with 2-piece Glads. 2-piece Blizzard Straya plus 2-piece Glads is more like a generalist kind of setup, where it's fine doing any type of content. But given that most of the damage comes from burst, you obviously want the 2-piece Nobliss versus over the 2-piece Glads. Okay, so that's for Ayaka's artifacts. And obviously, if you're using the freeze comp, you want to go all out on crit damage. And this is the type of stats that I have. Crit rate 18%, crit damage 254.3%. Okay, shh, Ayaka, let me speak first. Okay, crit rate, right? If you are using freeze comp along with cryo resonance, you will get a 55% crit rate boost, which means that when the opponent is frozen, basically with this setup, I have 73.2% crit rate together with 254% crit damage, and this is at level 80, by the way. If I get her to level 90, we will get 263.9% crit rate. Crit damage. So in terms, this is the reason why 4-piece Blizzard Straya I would recommend getting it over the 2-piece Blizzard Straya with 2-piece Nobliss. Weapon wise, I'm using a R1 Mistsplitter Reforged right now. I do have R5 ready, but for the sake of doing some playtests, I have not refined the weapon to R5 yet. In terms of weapons, for 5-star, obviously her Mistsplitter Reforged is the best. Summit Shaper is actually not too bad. I tried it with Summit Shaper as well. So basically, her burst damage, the Summit Shaper does about 23.7k per tick in Spiral Abyss Floor 12, while her Mistsplitter does about almost 27k damage. So yeah, damage is kind of big, but it's also because in the freeze comp, Summit Shaper is not that great. Because you can't afford to hit 5 times before you cast your burst. By then you waste too much of your Venti's burst as well as your Mona's burst duration, the Omen buff duration. Or actually specifically it's the Omen debuff duration since it's applied on enemies. So yeah, Summit Shaper is okay, you can still use it, just that it's not advisable to go for max stats on it. Try not to get max stats if you can, in terms of the FreezeCon setup. I'll talk more about FreezeCon setup when we talk about TeamCom. So there you have it, these two weapons are pretty good on her, and obviously Primordial Jade Cutter. I don't have Primordial Jade Cutter, so I can't really test it out. But Primordial Jade Cutter is good because it gives a lot of crit rate. But when it comes to FreezeCon, you don't need Primordial Jade Cutter, right? You don't need the crit rate. So that's why Primordial Jade Cutter is more for if you're not going for FreezeCon. If you're going for something like a Reverse Meltcom, or even just a Kazuha with Bennet comp. Both of them will buff your Ayaka burst damage very nicely. Okay, now let's talk about 4-star weapon options. 4-star weapon option, the best actually, is in the shop, which is the Blackcleave Longsword, because of the substack crit damage for FreezeCom. So for FreezeCom, the best 4-star option is Blackcleave Longsword for the crit damage. For non-FreezeCom, Black Sword is actually a very good option as a 4-star weapon, 4-star sword on her. In fact, I would say it's the best 4-star sword for her if you're not using FreezeCom. So it's between Black Sword and Blackcleave. Blackcleave Longsword and Black Sword for 4-star weapons. FreezeCom and non-FreezeCom. Okay, so these are her weapons. Now that I'm done talking about her stat screen itself, weapons, artifacts, constellations, talents, let's talk about her team comp. So team comp itself, obviously you see here I am using the Morgana freeze comp because you have Mona. It was called Morgana because of Mona and Ganyu, but we are not using Ganyu here, we are using Ayaka. The sequence of activating the burst is a bit different on the Ayaka's freeze comp versus Ganyu's freeze comp, because Ganyu's burst lasts 15 seconds, so you can afford to cast Ganyu's burst first, then cast Venti. But when it comes to team comp with Ayaka, you have to actually cast her burst later, otherwise you waste too much of her burst damage, because her burst only lasts for 5 seconds. So it has to be the last thing that you cast. You have to apply Cryo, get a Venti to use his burst to make a Cryo infused burst. Use Mona for her burst as well as to set up the taunt for more constant hydro application. Then you use Ayaka's burst. And before you use Ayaka's burst, you should use the alternate spring and use a normal attack to cancel so that you get the 18% cryo damage bonus from her passive talent. And if you're using R1 Mistsplitter, regardless of the refinement, as long as you're using Mistsplitter Reforge, all of the stat is based on using normal attack. So therefore you use the normal attack to cancel her alternate spring. It synergizes very well with the weapon. For Summit Shaper, you can get 1 stat with that too, so that's nice. I don't recommend hitting 5 times before using her burst, because you are wasting your Venti and your Mona burst time. But Mona burst time is not so bad, because if you are using the free setup, you are actually extending her Omen debuff. The damage bonus debuff is actually being extended. So Mona is not so bad, it's more of Venti's burst being wasted. And the setup here is very obvious. Diona is a very important centerpiece character here, as a battery, as a shielder, as well as a healer. If you don't have Diona, the alternate option. Okay, now I'm going to talk about alternate option, because this is not a cheap team. You have 3 5 stars and 1 4-star. So let's talk about a alternate version for the freeze team. So freeze comp itself, you can have Sucrose as the F2B version for the Anemo character. You can have Xingqiu as the replacement for Mona, although you lose the 16% damage bonus, but Xingqiu's Hydro Swords themselves also deal decent damage, so that's not too bad. Diona, I suppose the next best replacement would be Rosaria for battery. But Rosaria only serves the battery function, she really doesn't serve the shielding and the healing portion, so not the best replacement per se. And Cryo, obviously, you can use people like Ganyu. Ganyu is much better in the Morgana comp. And even Keia with high Constellation is actually very, very effective. But anyway, since we are talking about Ayaka being in a freeze comp, so Cryo slot will be her together with a battery. And ER, you need about 140% because her burst is 80 energy cost. Okay, so let me repeat, you need 140% burst on, sorry, 140% ER on Ayaka. Now, other than freeze comp, you can also go for a reverse melt comp or a buffer comp. This is what I call a buffer comp. Why I call this a buffer comp? Because you have Kazuha buffing, giving her damage amplification bonus, and Bennet giving the base attack bonus. So this is actually very, very effective, and you will see me using this comp in against the weekly bosses in my DPS showcase later. Okay, so this is very nice as well. Now, if you don't have Kazuha, what you can do is you can also go for Bennet together with Xiangling, Ayaka, and also a Zhongli for shield. Obviously, if you don't have Zhongli, you can choose to use some other character. That is fine. Any other shielder, or if you don't want a shielder, you can get a. But if you already have Banner, you don't really need a healer, so that's that. So another option would be to go for double Cryo and double Pyro. Double Pyro being your Bennet, Xiangling, and then the Ayaka, US the Cryo, and another Cryo battery like Diona or Saria. And that's a very, very F2P comp already, right? It's 3 4 stars together with 1 5 star. And still very, very doable and still works very, very well. It's just not as well as FreezeCon. That's all. FreezeCon is just better in terms of just the how you need to set up the artifacts as well as the comp itself. Yeah. Alright. So these are the comp options for Ayaka. I'll say it's FreezeCon, a alternate cheaper version of FreezeCon. And non-freeze comp, you have reverse melt comp or damage M comp. Damage M comp would be this amplification. Okay, so that is it for the comps, compositions, the team compositions. Now I'll show the DPS showcase first. The weekly bosses, then the Spiral Abyss Floorchoff. You'll see that she is really, really effective at taking down the Spiral Abyss ladder, even with C0 and R1 weapon. Okay, so before I do the actual showcase, let me just show you guys the stats that I have. So 2.1k attack with almost 60% crit rate with 221.6% crit damage. This is for the non-freeze comp build. The damage amplification build where I have 2 please Blizzard Strayer with 2 please no please. Okay, still C0 talent. C0 constellations. Talents wise, we have 6, 6, 8. 6, 6, and 8. Okay, so let's look at the DPS showcase itself for non-freeze comp. Okay, so first off, our favorite punching bag Divalin. Notice that I've already applied Cryo on him. Use Kazuha for the damage amplification, and Bennet for the buff, obviously. Use alternate spring attack, then the burst, and we are doing 20k per tick. Very, very nice on a non-freeze comp. Okay, next is Chow, and you'll see me not using my burst because I'm saving the burst for his final form. So this is an example of what I say, where you use your charge attack, you use the alternate spring to cancel the charge attack, and then you use the normal attack to cancel the alternate spring. So it's like a very, very nice synergy. And it does enough damage to take down Chow, the first form, as you can see. Let me just skip ahead. Okay. Final form, now we are going to use the burst. First, we apply Cryo, Kazuha for damage amplification, Bennet for the buff, and burst. Right, after using the normal attack, and it's 37.7k per tick. So this is C0 and R1 weapon, so it's very nice. She's actually very F2P friendly in my opinion. Okay, next is Spiral Abyss. Spiral Abyss I'm using Freezecom. So my Freezecom gear I think I already showed earlier, we have like 250 plus crit damage. So I'm standing in my Diona field for the EM buff. Not bad, 18k. And it almost brought the Jovishet down. I believe if I have level 90, we might be able to get him down. Get the two of them down. Or along with R5 weapon, that's for sure. If it's level 90 to get an R5 weapon. Oops. It was a bit too far for Diona's elemental skill. Okay, floor 12, chamber 2. Okay, in this particular round, I actually spent more time than I should because I don't have enough energy recharge. I had to slowly conserve my energy to make sure that we have enough energy for chamber 3. Because chamber 3 is the one that you really need all your burst. Unfortunately, I don't have, I couldn't get good artifacts with ER as substat along with the good rolls on crit damage and attack percent. But look at the effectiveness of this Freezecom. I'm not using Ayaka's burst and it's still very effective. Okay, well... I don't want to use a burst, but if you notice, okay, never mind. Let's just use it first. Okay, so floor 12 3, chamber 3. I actually did another run where we save up enough energy, so I can show you guys with full energy on floor 12 3 how Ayaka fares as part of the showcase. So notice that I'm actually using Diona's burst as the applicator, the first applicator, instead of like with Ganyu. So very nice, almost 27k per tick on floor 12 level 100 mob. So that's really good. And we have already taken down the Abyss Mage and gotten the Abyss Letter down to the shield stage. So now it's a matter of again gaining enough energy so that I can show you guys how her elemental burst takes down the Abyss Letter shield. So like I said, unfortunately I don't have enough ER. If I have 140% ER, we would have full energy by now. But it's okay. So this is how it will look like with the proper Freezecom setup. Okay, so this is... Okay, so sorry, let me repeat myself. I had to stop to go take care of my baby for a while just now. Okay, so this is how her DPS showcase looks like. And these were the stats that we were using. Sorry, this is the Nobliss. Let me just switch back first. Right, so this was the Freezecom setup that I was doing the DPS showcase for. And you'll see that we have very nice crit damage, 254%. Crit rate is 18%, but it's fine with a Freezecom. And cryo damage is 73.6% because of the 15% from Artifact and another 12% from the Mistsplitter Reforged, and obviously the cryo damage Goblet. So all in all, I would say that Ayaka is actually a very nice and balanced unit in the sense that her elemental skill has shortcomings that is made up for by her elemental burst, which is really good. And her elemental burst is very hefty on the energy cost because it's level 80. So ideally, you definitely, sorry, not level 80 energy cost. So ideally, you definitely need 140% ER to make her more, how should I say, so that the burst can be cast on cooldown. So that's one thing I'm lacking, and you'll see that that's very evident in the DPS showcase. If we have the burst energy ready on cooldown, it will be a huge difference in her DPS as well. So don't underestimate those energy recharge substats. Now, is she F2P friendly? I'll say yes, because you only need C0 for her to be very effective. And in my comp earlier, even my Venti is C0. And Mona, honestly speaking, you also need just C0. You don't need any more constellations, because most of Mona's constellations is really more for main DPS, although there's one that gives crit rate, so that's nice. Wait, I don't think it gives crit rate. Oh yes, there is a crit rate increase when party member hits and attacks an opponent affected by an omen, but by that point in time, with a freeze con, you already have 70+% crit rate, so additional 15% crit rate is not game changing per se. So you really just need C0 Venti, C0 Ganyu, C0 Mona, and a C1 Diona, just so that you get more energy, and C2 for a better shield. That's it. And I already covered the F2P alternatives for Venti and Mona. So I hope you can see from this video guide that Ayaka is actually a pretty decent unit, very F2P friendly. But is she better than Ganyu? Unfortunately, I'll say no. Especially, we have to consider the fact that Ganyu doesn't need to use stamina to infuse her weapon, her attacks with cryo. She just needs to charge it for 2 seconds. And on top of that, her elemental skill allows her to be able to immediately fire off a AoE cryo damage. And in Morgana comp itself, let me just go to this screen so that she doesn't speak. And in the Morgana comp itself for Ganyu, because her burst lasts for 15 seconds, you can even afford to cast her burst first before casting Venti's burst. Which means that Venti's ability to regenerate 15 energy works for Ganyu, but it doesn't work for Ayaka. Ayaka in freeze comp doesn't get to benefit from this particular talent, so that's one thing to know as well. Not to mention Ganyu's energy is only 60, her burst requirement, so it's actually very easy to ensure that you can keep casting Ganyu's burst on cooldown. Whereas for Ayaka, you need to have really good artifacts, good enough artifact rolls, so that you have at least 140% ER along with a cryo battery to be able to cast her 80 burst energy on cooldown. Alright, so anyway, the video has gone on longer than I really wanted. I hope it has been helpful to you guys. And for in the near future, I'll probably do one more comparison of Ayaka using R1 versus R5 Mistsplitter. Okay, so with a C0 Ayaka and R1 Mistsplitter with a good freeze comp setup, we already tore through Spiral Abyss like nothing. Yeah, so is Ayaka good? What do you guys think? Alright, so anyway, thanks everyone for watching. If you like the content, remember like the video and click subscribe for more, yeah? Okay, and let me know if you want me to do more such guides for other characters as well. I can actually do them because most of my characters, in fact majority of my characters are level 19. The level 19 bar stops here. I have 2 level 18 in the comp, so in other words I have 21 characters at level 90 right now. Before, and Ayaka I will definitely get to 19, so it's like 22 characters with level 90. Yeah. So anyway, thanks everyone for watching, bye.